Hello, good evening, and welcome to the first ever episode of Wow, What a Week. And what a week this was for the first week of my new show. I thought we'd just sit back and have a chat and get to know each other because, after all, nothing is going to happen in Azeroth just before the expansion. We know... Oh, right, yeah, there was that. Okay. Well, I suppose we can deal with that. Yeah. And there was that too, wasn't there? Alright, well, that means we've got a bit of a full show, so let's just get on with it. And therefore, our first news story of the week, and the big elephant in the room this week, is going to be this. The tree. Teldrath, the home of the Night Elves. Well, we wondered for a long time who burnt it. Well, we now know. Now, it's at this point that I'd probably have to tell you that spoilers are ahead. But to be honest, if you don't know who burnt the tree by now, you probably never will, so it was Sylvanas. And the entire of the Horde went absolutely nuts. 50% of the Horde screaming, hashtag not my war chief. The other 50% of the Horde screaming, good old Sylvanas up the Alliance. And this is the point. This is what Blizzard have done to try and re-inject a little bit of divisiveness in the game. And it's not a bad thing, because that actually hasn't even taken into consideration what happened in the Alliance. Of course, the Alliance is sitting there at this point in time thinking, Sylvanas, what a bitch. And quite rightly so. She not only burnt the tree out of malice, out of anger, raw, pure and utter rage, but she managed to kill all of the young, innocent women and children that were still left in the tree. She was even told they were in the tree, and yet she still burnt the tree. She burnt the tree presumably to remove all hope from the surviving members of the Alliance. But still, isn't that rather nasty, divisive, evil thing to do? And Ian Hazacostas has us know that this is morally grey. It doesn't appear to be morally grey to me. Well, no, it isn't. But it also is at the same time. You see, Sylvanas was never morally grey. Sylvanas is not even a full human being, or full person. Sylvanas has got no soul, or at least the remnants of a soul after the Lich King finished with her. So therefore for her, what morally is grey and black and white would be entirely different to what it is for you or for me. I mean, we live by the rule, do as you have been done by. Well, she's had a pretty rough life. I mean, the Lich King ripped her soul clean from her, took all hope, took all of her life, and now she's in the same situation where she can do the same to others. Why shouldn't she? But what this has done to the World of Warcraft community is insane. Immediately the tree burnt, so did the forums. And keyboards all around the world were spontaneously combusting as people were on the forums crying and screaming about how bad their war chief is, or how bad your war chief is, or oh my god, we've got Garrosh 2.0. And all of this is to be expected, but it's also planned. That is what Blizzard wanted to do. Blizzard really wanted to create two factions again, and that's what we've done. We've created two factions that will never work together for a single goal again. That is a change. It is not what has been happening since Warcraft came into the world of Warcraft, since the Burning Crusade, where we worked together to down Illidan, and then of course in the Wrath of the Lich King, where we worked together as a group to kill him, and then a little later on we worked to kill him, and then, well, we had to kill him together. And then we all wanted to kill him. No, we didn't. But we did kill him. And then we all wanted to kill them. And here we are. Having worked together with the opposing faction for so long, we are now in a situation of really not knowing what to do with ourselves when both factions suddenly become divided in their hatred for one another. In fact, at the moment, if you look at the forums, the only person that you could consider to be the bad du jour, the big bad that we're all going to work together to kill, would be her. No, I don't mean her, I mean her. And will we? I don't know. Garrosh 2.0 just seems a little bit derivative to me. I don't think so. There are plenty of calls on the forum for here we go for Garrosh 2.0, and lazy writing and why can't you write something new, Blizzard, and all that. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. Blizzard have shown to us in the last 6 weeks that the writing, I believe, has suddenly taken a massive turn for the improvement. The game that used to be about what spells we're going to have this expansion, what is the new mini game? Are we going to have more transmog abilities? How are the battle pets? I mean, we've had expansions where really all we've done is introduce Pokemon and Barbies. And this is something that's new. We've actually turned around and Blizzard have decided that the game is now about the story. And the story is something that we need to be focusing on. It is, after all, a game that is a rich story. This story has been going on for the better part of 20 years. It's a story that is richer and certainly has more nuances than just about any other game storyline in the world. And in fact, it only came out with its first film a couple of years ago. Other such films have come out with stories, including things like Halo, have come out with films many years before, and arguably they didn't really have a story to work from. Even Street Fighter came out with a story, and all that was a game that was involved a bunch of people kicking the crap out of each other. So World of Warcraft is one of those games that lives and dies on its story. This is what Blizzard have done. They've rekindled a story, and here we go. Let's sit back and enjoy the ride. And yet it's going to annoy people. It's going to infuriate people. And people are going to stand up and scream, I'm unsubbing, that's it, fuck you, Blizz. But that is something we're going to have to expect. As I said to a friend of mine who is a YouTuber, the only reason you are going to get negative comments at the moment is because people are so passionate about the game. And that is what we can see. And I would imagine that Ian Hazacostas and Christine Golding are all sitting there with a smile on their face thinking we have achieved exactly what we set out to do. So I say well done, Blizzard, good on you. And of course, moving on from the black heart of Sylvanas, we have Saurfang. Now, Saurfang has been the victim of quite a lot of speculation over the last few weeks. We know that Saurfang did actually end up in Stormwind from data mining. We also know that Saurfang wasn't particularly happy with the decisions made by Sylvanas regarding the tree. But apart from that, really it's a bit of a mystery. We've heard rumours that Saurfang will take over the Horde. We've heard rumours that Saurfang has defected to the Alliance. None of which really have a lot of substance to them, and none of which are answered at this point. But this cinematic, the Old Soldier cinematic that was released by Blizzard on Thursday, did really go a little way to explain Saurfang's feeling. It was quite a nice exchange between Saurfang and a young troll. And really it's just another illustration of how Blizzard are putting so much emphasis on the storyline and investing you into the storyline. And maybe this was a little bit of a salvation for some of the Horde players that really are having problems with what their war chief has done. I know there are comments in the forums about Saurfang for war chief and whether or not we will roll Sylvanas and Saurfang will take over. I don't think so. But Saurfang at least provides the morally white to Sylvanas' morally black. Put those two together, that's where Ian comes up with the morally grey, I believe. Take the two of them and you'll get something in the middle. The inclusion of the Old Soldier cinematic really goes to prove the point that Blizzard are making this expansion really about something that you need to be invested in the storyline. After all, most players in World of Warcraft don't really understand the story and probably don't really understand the characters and what they did. Well, this I think is what Blizzard are trying to change. And again, this with Saurfang, I mean, I don't know if people are even aware of Saurfang's history. During the cinematic itself, it makes references to Saurfang burying, or at least finding the body of his son Dranosh, which of course was mentioned in the Lich King. But I think this is starting to go a little way to explaining to people either explaining the story or at least giving them the opportunity to want to go away and learn the story, because I think they'll get a lot more from this expansion if they understand how the characters got to where they are. Of course, while the main storylines being Sylvanas and Saurfang, there have been other news just bubbling away in the background. A look at the forums will show you that there are still some things that people are a little bit upset about. So, any look at the forums will tell you that quite a large movement at the moment for the alliance, it's not fair, we're not getting storylines kind of way of thinking. Well, of course you're going to get storylines. This is the first part of the War of the Thorns, which we knew was going to be the burning of Teldrassil. That was entirely really a Horde storyline, and that's what's happened. So for those of you that are alliance and thinking, well, we've got nothing good to look forward to, next week we've got the Battle of Lordaeron, which is pretty much you are going to go and try and kick the butt of the Horde. So watch this space. I don't believe that the powers that be at Blizzard have created a single one-sided storyline. Doesn't matter how much Horde bias you hear of on the forums. Don't worry, hang on in there. I'm sure you'll get something next week we can all talk about that will be just as much fun for you and probably just as frightening and just as scary for you to think about. Now in the oh my god here we go again category, we have a piece of news that pretty much rears its ugly head every single time we have a new expansion. And that is that Blizzard are trying to remove add-ons, specifically DBM, bigwigs, those kind of raid edition add-ons that are going to help you out with the timers, etc. It's a rubbish. There's no real story. There's no real substance to this particular story. But every year you get it. Every expansion you get the same thing. And currently on the forums there's a thread there with about 300 or 400 different comments made of everyone putting it forward that Blizzard are trying to remove DBM, that raiding is going to be destroyed. Oh, I'm going to unsub. This happens every expansion, and let me tell you, it has never ever happened. But if it did happen, Blizzard are not suddenly going to drop us in the lurch. They're going to let us know in advance. Blizzard have, it is true, increased their own reporting during boss encounters. The last expansion, Legion, there were several boss encounters that had warnings and timers for events that the boss was going to trigger baked in the game, as opposed to being a part of your DBM or a part of your boss mod. So that is something that Blizzard are actually doing. But that in itself doesn't indicate that Blizzard are going to make it impossible for DBM or boss mods to work. Of course, DBM and boss mods are really just a set of timers in the first place. They're not particularly complicated. They certainly don't rely on any particular information from Blizzard apart from when the encounter starts. After that, some of these effects that they're keeping track of are just purely timers. 35 seconds and XYZ will happen. Another 14 seconds and XYZ will happen again. And that pretty much is how DBM do a lot of their stuff. It's not particularly rocket science, but it would be very difficult for Blizzard to change it or to stop it from happening. A bigger concern possibly would be weak auras. Weak auras do require quite a bit of information from Blizzard, from the UI, and maybe that could be blocked in the future. But no moves from Blizzard yet, and certainly no notification from Blizzard that that's going to happen. So everyone can stop panicking for the moment. And with those things aside, pretty much that's it for this week. There are still reports of trash mobs in the middle of Hellfire Peninsula, one-hitting people because the scaling isn't working properly, and there are still reports that the leveling procedure is taking a little bit longer, even though there was a bit of a hotfix put in place last week. That should be repaired this week, so Blizzard tell, but we shall soon see. The big news for this coming week is of course going to be the Battle of Lordaeron. And as per usual, we will all be waiting there for it to start as soon as it happens at your reset time at 3 o'clock in the morning, my local time. So I'll be there, nice and ready with a cup of coffee in my hand, and we'll see what happens. Percy is an old and ex-Horde player who has in fact reformed to Alliance a long time ago. The one place I do remember very fondly is the Undercity, so I'm not really looking forward to the concept of the Undercity being destroyed. We'll soon see how that happens, I suppose, and maybe even as an Alliance I'll be able to go back to the Undercity and share in my old stomping ground. Well, if you liked what you heard today, please subscribe to the channel and click that bell, because who doesn't like clicking two things when you really should only have bothered clicking one? Like this post if you liked it, and please make a comment below, because that's the way that I'm going to best communicate with you all. Other than that, good night everybody, have a great weekend in WoW, and we will see you next week. Goodbye.